All right, welcome to the 247 Hockey Show. I'm Zach, and as you know, 24/7 Hockey, we're for dedicated and serious hockey players that are looking to take their game to the next level. And what we like to do here is we like to bring in guests, and typically we'll bring in experienced hockey players that are playing at a high level, whether it's junior A, college, pro. And today we have a really good friend of mine, Bobby Robbins, on the show today. Bobby plays for the Providence Bruins in the American Hockey League. He's on a NHL contract with the Boston Bruins in the NHL and also the Providence Bruins in the AHL. Played some Division I hockey at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and also before that, Wisconsin native. And then Bobby and I played some junior hockey together as well. So, Bobby, it's great to have you on the show, man.
Thanks a lot. Always great to talk to you, Zach.
Yeah, for sure. So, Bobby is the guy when we were playing juniors where, if I would go out and fight a guy and he'd kick my ass, then they'd call Bobby in to take care of him because they're like, all right, we need to step it up a notch here, so let's call in the big guns. And that's kind of the guy you're dealing with right now.
Yeah, those are some good days we had. We were a force to be reckoned with. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, your career is definitely, completely gone to the next level, and you're in the heavyweight division. Let's just put it that way. And I just wanted to bring you on and ask some really good questions here, and hopefully just shine a light on some things that you're doing in your career that has got you to where you are right now. Some insight that you have at the professional level that maybe can help some younger players, some younger parents, some coaches. And also, like, kind of looking back a little bit, how some of this information would have changed in terms of you would have had it earlier in your career. And I think that's really like the whole component of this show is, getting guys that are playing at a high level that have access to experience, have access to experts, and then, basically bring that information down, because a lot of time, we're learning through trial and error, or, we're learning at really late points in our career. And if we can have access to that information earlier, I mean, the sky's really the limit.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I mean, I wish the old saying, you wish you knew what you knew now when you were younger.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that applies in every walk of life, and especially in hockey. And I know for myself, I've had to learn a lot of lessons and, find out just by experimenting by myself and grinding away and chipping away at that goal and just chasing that dream. But I think I've definitely acquired a lot of knowledge over the years, and any tips or pointers that I can give to you and any of your readers or followers, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, man. Well, we really appreciate it. And it's great to have you on. Why don't we first address looks like you got some dings and some dents there, a little bit of little battle scars. What's up with that?
Yeah, it was a pretty rough weekend. We had a game. It's called a 3-and-3. It's kind of a pro term where you play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that it's like the dreaded 3-and-3 where it's it's going to be a grind, and you pretty much know what your 72 hours are all about. You're just going to be grinding away and going to war for 72 hours. And that's pretty much how the weekend went. And as you can see, this is the result of it. I got in 2 scraps. I got in a fight Friday night and then also Sunday night. So, I've gotten a couple fights and played hard all weekend, got hit a couple times in the face and hopefully hit the other guy a few more times. And we walked away with 2 wins on the weekend. So it makes it all worth it for sure.
That's awesome, man. Well, that's good. Congratulations on a good weekend, and comes with the territory, I guess. I mean, when you're fighting, you're fighting heavyweights. I mean, these are guys that want to fight in the NHL, and obviously there's no really fighters in the NHL anymore. I mean, you got your tough guys, but they have to play the game as well, and they're hell hockey players. But that's a lot different than fighting in the USHL.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest difference that I noticed is you're fighting against grown men now. Looking back at myself and when we were fighting back in the junior days, we were just, scrawny kids. We thought we were tough because we could do, throw up the bench press or do some arm curls or something. But now at this level, these are serious athletes who are training to fight and know that their ticket to the NHL is going to be obviously first and foremost being a hockey player and a good hockey player and being effective. But there's to add that fighting element. That's kind of the kicker that'll get you through that doorway. And so these guys are all in the same boat as I am, and willing to fight every game, and looking for fights, and knowing that that's going to be kind of your ticket. So you're definitely fighting against skilled grown men, and it's a little scary, but it's a challenge, and it's pretty exciting every night.
Well, that's cool, man. That's really cool. What so like getting into the getting into some of the tactics here, some of the tips here. First and foremost, this year you signed with the Boston Bruins. Congratulations on that. Why don't you talk a little bit about that process, what that meant to you, and kind of like that point for you in your career and where you're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing feeling. I think a little backstory for me is that about 4 years ago, I came back from playing overseas in Europe, and this, to give some perspective, this is now my eighth professional season. Definitely been hanging around for a while, wow, 8 years. Um, but so year 5 and 6 were spent overseas, or I'm sorry, my third and fourth year were spent overseas, playing in the UK Elite League and also the Austrian Elite League. And while I was over there, I I kind of went over there like most guys to finish out the career, or to just have some more fun in a kind of a low stress atmosphere, and guys can make a lot more money over playing in Europe. And while I was over there, I always had this feeling in my gut, kind of this almost this shameful feeling that I had given up on my NHL dream too early. I felt like I was like, something in my heart and my gut was just telling me, Bobby, you left too early, man. Well, and I just was left with those thoughts to really think about why I left too early. And I figured out the reason why I left was that I had to face a lot of different fears that I was having in my life. And one of the fears was for me to confront my fear of fighting. Um, my first couple of years pro, I was a prototypical power forward, and I played hard. I played gritty, and I was mucking in the corners, finishing my checks, getting the puck to the net, and just playing a very rugged style of hockey. But I really didn't have that fighting element to my game, which is realistically that was the last element that I needed to add to it to really be that complete power forward. And looking back on it now, it feels weird to say it, but the reason that it wasn't a part of my game was because I let the fear consume me. And once you're faced with that fear of whether you're going to fight or you're not, I chose not to, for whatever reason, those first couple of years pro. And while I went overseas where there wasn't any fighting, and while I was over there, like I said, I was having those thoughts and those regrets. And to make a long story short, I finally made the decision. I said to myself, I'm going to come back to North America, and I'm just going to reset everything and start from scratch, and really try and accomplish this goal of making to the NHL. And I knew that I was going to have to start in the East Coast Hockey League and start grinding my way up, hopefully try and get to the American Hockey League. And so that's what I did. I started out 4 years ago in Bakersfield, California, with the Bakersfield Condors in the East Coast Hockey League, and really started to fight that year, where all the other aspects of my game stayed the same, but I just really made an effort to look for fights. And I think in this game, the guys who do fight, you really have to look for them. And so I kind of learned the ropes a little bit that year, and the next year I played in the East Coast again for a team in Chicago. And at that point, I was looking at my career. It had been 2 years since I returned to North America. Nothing was really happening, and I was starting to get a little frustrated. And this was around the same time when Derek Bugard died, and there were all I think Bob Probert died that year, and Rick Rippon also died, and then also Wade Belak. So it was a pretty rough year for hockey fighters, and that was a big story in the media. Was what is the effect of these fights on the individual athletes? And I had been fighting now legitimately for 2 years. This was my second year fighting, and I started to question whether this was in the cards for me. I hadn't got a call to the American Hockey League, and I had taken a few shots in the head, and I was thinking, what is the damage in this? Because for me, there's a huge life outside of hockey. I have a family. I want to be a writer. I have a lot of different ideas with businesses that I want to pursue after hockey, and I didn't want to retire at 35 and just be a vegetable. And, so I was really having this kind of a balancing act to wonder if it was worth it for me. And I really looked deep inside of myself and said, well, you know what? I'm gonna give it everything I have this year and lay it all on the table. And if nothing happens, then I'm gonna have to really sit back and reevaluate. And it was about a month later after I made that commitment, right around Christmas, that I got called up to the Providence Bruins. And it was just like that moment was it was like, wow, everything finally came together, and everything started clicking into place, and all that hard work that happens behind the scenes that nobody sees, like those hours and hours spent drenched in the gym and boxing and just really pushing myself to the limit. It was like they all came together, and I got that call, and I ended up sticking on the team and finished the year that year. And before the season ended, I ended up signing an American League contract for the next season, which was the last season, if that makes sense. So that was such a big step. I was like, it was just an amazing feat that I was able to get that AHL contract, and then ended up playing the whole season last year in Providence, and did well and kept improving my game, and kept fighting, kept just doing what I was supposed to do out there. And once again, it all came together. It seemed like at the end of the year, we had a really good playoff run, and the team did well. Personally, I did well, and right after the end of the season, Boston offered me a 2-year NHL contract, and it was just like once again that same feeling, like, wow, all that hard work, it really paid off. It's like that. It really showed that formula works. Like you do A, B, and C, and that leads to whatever you're trying to accomplish. And I got that contract, and now I'm in my first year of that, and the next step is to keep doing all those little things and hopefully get the call to the NHL. So that's it's right before Christmas now, and that's where I'm sitting currently.
Nice, dude. Nice. I know you had a little bit of a small setback at the Bruins training camp there preseason with an injury, but let's talk a little bit, because you talk about being a fighter and having to implement that into your game, and there's a few takeaways there that I really want to highlight. But before we talk about that, one of the things that you mentioned was, you said, you've been going on the ice and you've been doing what's necessary, doing what you have to do. And I know fighting is a component of that, but I don't want people to get confused because of the fact that, you have a lot of roles, and you can't just be a tough guy. You can't just be a fighter. I mean, that's something you had to add into your game. But what do you consider really to be your job on the team? And, what is your objective when you go into a game? Like, what are your takeaways? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, like fighting isn't the only thing I do out there. It's really the secondary thing, and um, you know, it's one of those things that's it's a hard thing to do, and not many people are willing to do it. And I put finishing your checks in that same category, or going down and blocking a shot, and just really getting in the dirty areas and doing what the quote unquote skilled player doesn't want to do. It's like a small percentage of the team are going to be your skilled players who are looked at to score goals every night, but the big chunk of players on any team and on any league are the role players who are willing to get dirty. And I know for a lot of the younger players, fighting isn't really an aspect, but that means blocking shots. That means winning your battles on the walls, getting the puck out, getting the puck in, keeping the game simple, and just being accountable defensively. And I mean, those are all things that I also add to my game. I've tried to learn how to block shots. I've learned how to play the wall, and it's like you combine all these little skills, and that's what makes you a complete hockey player. And fighting is just a part of that, in the pro game for a player like myself. And so, what kind of player is that? I guess you'd call it the power forward, where I'm looked at it to be a rugged right winger. And for me, that means going into every game and knowing that I'm going to bring a physical element to the game. When whatever that physicality means, it can mean, finishing a check. When I'm going in on the forecheck and I'm the F1 and I'm getting in there, there's no doubt in my mind that the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the man from the puck. I'm not going in there with a poke check or to try and steal the puck from the other player. I'm going in to try and put that guy through the glass. And that's my job as the F1 in a forecheck, and that's my job as a power forward and a rugged right winger. So I try and bring that physical element to the game with my body checking, and more often than not, in the pro game at least, and I know also in junior, when you do play like that and you do have a big hit, that's usually what leads to fights. And for my mentality, I don't really think about fighting going into a game. Like you said, those type of players, those one-dimensional fighters, those are dinosaurs now in hockey. You first and foremost, you have to be a hockey player, and you have to be accountable on the ice as a hockey player. So I'm going into a game and I'm not even thinking about fighting. I know I'm going to be playing physical and have a little snarl in my game, and I know that that'll usually lead to fights. So I look at that physical aspect of the game. Also, I want to score goals too. Let's not beat around the bush here. I want to score 50 goals in a year. I'll be happy with 20. I'll be happy with 10. But I'm trying to score every game. So I'm trying to, when I get the puck, I'm trying to be offensive and look to make plays and try and make the right play, because and oftentimes it's all about just trusting in your instinct as a hockey player. As a youngster, I was out there scoring goals, and I wasn't always playing, looking to run guys to the glass and fight people. I was looking to score goals and make plays. So that still applies today, and I'm trying to do that. And the third part of my game is to be accountable in the defensive zone. And I really think that's the biggest aspect of hockey, is you have to be accountable when you're playing defense. I know my job in the defensive zone. I know where I'm supposed to be. I know what I'm looked at to do. And, if I don't do that, I'm not going to play. That's the truth of the matter at this level, and I would assume at just about every level of hockey, where if you can't play defensively and know your job in a defensive role, you're not going to play, because the other team's going to score goals on you. So those are pretty much the three things I'm thinking about when I go into a hockey game, and trying to find a balance between all three of those.
Yeah, I like that, and I like how you said. I really think what defense really does in terms of you start off defensively, having a accountability defensively, and a lot of players need to learn how to play better defense. And it doesn't matter. You can even get away with that a little bit at the NHL level or the AHL level if you're the 70-point guy. But even then, there's an expectation there that you better know how to play in the defensive zone. And too many players, when they're younger, especially the top guys, they ignore the defensive side. They don't put as much emphasis on it. Well, guess what? When you get to that next level and you're not the top guy anymore, or there's a higher expectation there defensively, every level you go up, there's going to be a higher expectation defensively. And, you might have to end up being in a second or third line role where if you can't play defense, you're not going to get to play at that level. And I know that kind of goes back to what I was saying previously in terms of a lot of takeaways out of what you said about having to implement fighting into your game and realizing some of the necessary things that you have to do. And what players can take away from that, even if you're not a power forward, is every level you go up, you're going to have a different set of expectations there, and you better learn how to adapt quickly to maybe going from a first line guy to a fourth line guy, or a first line guy to a third line guy, and understanding the different components of the game, because they're looking to put you in a role, and if you can't fit that role, then you're not going to make the team, and you're not always going to be a first line guy. You're not always going to be a goal scorer, power play guy. And we know plenty of guys that we played with that were maybe the go-to guy in a team, and then they get to pro or NHL level, and they have to adapt to that grinder role. And if they're able to do that because of how they played previously, then they're going to stick. And maybe they can move up the chain by improving some of the skills and getting experience, and then only then can they end up maybe being that first or second line guy, and really being that go-to guy through working on maybe some of the additional skills that they need to implement at that level and pick their game up on that end. So I really like what you're saying there in terms of understanding what you have to bring into your game, because I really think that's so important at every single level when you're moving up to the next level. You want to make the Pee Wee A team and you're a squirt, or you're a Pee Wee B, or you want to make Junior A and you're a top midget player, you better look exactly what Bobby's saying in terms of blocking shots, being accountable on the wall, finishing your checks, being accountable defensively, because those are what coaches are looking for. They're not looking for a guy who's going to put a goal in and the coach sees the fact that, hey, maybe that's not going to happen when he gets to our level, because he's not good enough to do that consistently. So is he doing those little things consistently where now we can actually work with him and develop him into maybe a goal scorer as well?
Yeah, definitely. And another thing about goal scorers is, whatever level you're at right now, if you're a midget player, a peewee or high school or junior, and you're a goal scorer, well, unless you're a goal scorer in the NHL, when you make the jump to the next level, every time you make that jump, there's going to be certain people who can remain goal scorers at that level, like you said, or they're not, or they're going to drop off. That they say that hockey pyramid. Every time you move up, a certain number of people drop off. And what's the reasoning for that? And I really think that it's because people are, that quote unquote skilled guy or goal scorer, they're not focusing on playing a well-rounded game. And I think if you center everything around defensive play, you can still score goals. You want to be a goal scorer, you can still score goals. But if you're strong defensively, that just means you're going to break the puck out quicker and get into the offensive zone quicker, where you can score goals.
Yep. Exactly. And if you're in a better position defensively in the offensive zone and neutral zone, and it almost comes down just to, at that point, it comes down to, a mindset and a preparation on the mindset, but also just, the effort to, get back quickly, the effort to take the extra step and get in the right position instead of being lazy, the know-how to know where to be. But if you're doing that, you're going to create a lot more turnovers. It's going to create a lot more offense. And I really think that's a big component as well. I mean, a lot of times the top players that are scoring goals at the higher levels are the ones that are the most intelligent defensively, I mean, they don't have to be the most physical defensively. I mean, you're in a physical role, you're a power forward, but you can be playing solid defense without being the most physical guy on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, playing defense isn't about, running guys to the glass. It's all about, playing your angles and being smart. I think that's why playing defense is so hard, is because you actually have to slow the game down and think and use your head. So that's what coaches are teaching us at this level, that everybody at the American League level wants to make the jump to the NHL, and if you're not strong defensively, good luck.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with players that are, the same thing when I was coaching with Waterloo, and the same thing with midget players coming in to play junior A, and then you talk to, college coaches, or you talk to major junior coaches. It's the same thing with, junior players trying to go to the next level as well. At every level, there's more of an emphasis on the positional accountability on the defensive side of the puck.
Yeah, definitely. The higher level you get to, the harder it is to play defense. So.
Exactly. And the better players are going to be around you, which is why you talk about skill, speed, skating, strength, why those components, the physical components, are so important.
Yeah, definitely.
So talk about that a little bit. I mean, we can sit here and do a whole podcast on, the defensive accountability, and at some point we probably should, because we can really go into a lot of detail in terms of some of the positional tactics that you can teach, forwards. But for now, let's move on to the next point here, which is, the skill development in your game. I mean, as a power forward, as a strong forward, you haven't always been the most skilled guy. I mean, when I played with you, you had good skills for a big guy. You weren't the best skater on the ice, but you got a lot of points. I mean, you were able to play your role well, and were probably one of the leading rookie scorers in the league that year. And obviously, was enough attention to go sign a Division I college scholarship after some time in the USHL. So, but now as you're even, advanced onto pro hockey, what role does skills have in your game? Skating, passing, shooting, stick handling. What do you do to refine that? Are you still focused on that? Are you still working on that? So just talk to me about that a little bit, because I'm really interested in that component.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what level you're at, skill development is always a priority, even from the NHL all the way down. Once a week we have a skills and skating coach come, and usually a Tuesday or Wednesday during the week, we'll have a dedicated hour and a half practice just to skating or just to skill work. And for me, I mean, yeah, like you said, for me, skating was always my thing that I needed to work on. And I think that year in Montana, I could barely make it up and down the ice, but somehow I found a way to get there and to get the puck in the net, which was, for me, was just using my physicality to go to the crease and to just bang pucks in. And it was, at UMass Lowell in college, my right around my sophomore year where I really made a point to work on my skating and to shed a few extra pounds and be as lean and as sleek as possible. Which for me, that was a big tipping point in my skating development. So as soon as I leaned out and I started working with skating coaches in the summer, I really, it's like anything that you work at. You put in enough hours, you're going to see an improvement.
Yep.
And so slowly but surely, my skating got better. And I mean, it's my 8th year pro now, and we're still working on skating at least once a week. And I know a lot of the guys after practice. Well, another thing that I'll mention is that after a practice, if you do have, I don't know how it is with some of the younger players, but for us, we have ice available after practice. So as soon as the practice is over, people don't just leave the ice. It's almost like part 2 of practice takes over, where you as an individual and as a pro, now it's your time for your own development to work on what's good, what you need to work on. And so some guys are working on skating. The centers are all working on face-offs. Fighters are grappling with each other. Goalies are working on their movement. Everybody's working on goal scoring. And one thing that I do work on at least 2 or 3 times a week is catching rims. So we'll have a guy stand behind the net or on the other side of the corner and just fire slap shots right along the runner of the ice. And as a winger, I come down and I make sure make sure no defenseman's pinching down on me. I work on picking that puck off the rim clean and right away getting my feet moving up ice with my head up, ready to make a play. I mean, that's for a winger especially. That's aside from defense. That's one of the most important aspects of being a good winger is it's being accountable to be able to catch a rim and get the puck moving and break out clean out of your own end. That's one of the things we say is to keep the game simple. It's get the puck out, which means get it out of the defensive zone, get the puck in, which means either making an offensive play or making a smart dump away from the goalie, and third part is getting the puck to the net. If that means getting a shot or getting the puck in the corner and stuffing it and crashing the net. So I know all the wingers, we really emphasize working on rims and catching those pucks on our backhand, on our off wing, catching it with our skate, getting it and looking up ice and getting moving up ice. So it's interesting to see all the different aspects of the different parts of people's games that people do work on. And for me, I like to be well-rounded. I'm in there some days taking face-offs with the center and working on my face-off game. And I think this year I've taken up probably 4 face-offs. Maybe my center got kicked out of the circle, and now I feel confident to go in there and take that face-off. And I'm also working on my power skating every week and my shooting and just really trying to round everything out. And then on one side of the rink, there's guys doing a little stick handling clinic and stick handling around cones and really working on their hands. So once practice is over, it's like now it's time for the real practice to start, where you're going to improve personally as a hockey player, working on the things that you need to improve on. If you don't work on the things that you're already good at, it's like you pick what needs the most improvement, and then you start with that.
Yep, I like that. And when you talk about rims, just for anyone who's not familiar with that term, that's basically a wrapped puck. So it's a puck in the defensive zone where a defenseman might fire it around the board. So picking up that puck off the wall and making a good play with it. And so, and I mean, it's just a hard thing to do. And then you talk about like the skating component for what you guys are doing after practice and what you guys are doing on the skills. What is that skating like? Like I think a lot of players, maybe even again, we're talking about high school age players or junior players. Are you doing a lot of the same basic drills, and is it just mindful, conscious repetition where you're not just going through the motions, you're really focusing on the technique? But is it are you doing some secret skating drills that nobody knows about? Is basically what I want to get down to.
I wish I knew some of those, but you know what? We're doing the exact power skating drills that I did when I was 12 years old. I think I was at Laura Stam speed skating, where we have a coach, we have 4 lines, and we go through and he says, all right, we're going to go down and only going to use our inside edges. And so maybe you'll be on one foot, just utilizing your inside edge and your outside edge. And I like what you said about being mindful. When you're not just going out there and going a million miles an hour. You're doing slow, very mindful, just motions, and really trying to burn that into your all of your fast twitch muscles and your motor memory, and
Yeah.
just really getting that proper stride. And then after hours of that, then when you're moving at full speed, that's when you see the results.
Yep.
So I mean, we're keeping it very simple. You at a very high level at the American Hockey League and even at the NHL. The coaches that we have, those are the same skating coaches for the NHL teams.
Yep.
And it's all just very simple, seemingly simple, edge work and working on your C cuts and your pivots, but doing it all at a very almost like a slow pace, but very deliberate in your
Yep.
form.
Yep, exactly. And you're working on the technique there. I mean, you're working on the edges, you're working on the knee bend, you're working on the stride extension, the stride recovery, lengthening and all those components. And so, but the message here is, I can't tell you how many times, I've been working, whether it's individually with players or in a team setting, and you get a player who's maybe, you get some players who are a little bit better, they're the triple A, they're the junior A, they're the college guys, and they're sitting there going, why do we have to be doing this stuff? The same stuff I did when I was Pee-wees. The NHL guys, the pro guys, those guys are all doing the same stuff. The key is that, they're not bitching about it, right? They're actually focused on becoming better and using that time properly, really drilling down on the mechanics. And, over time, that's going to continue to make, chip away and create a little bit better mechanics so that it's becoming habit. And when that loose puck is there, you're going to instinctively go after it, whatever mechanics that you have for your stride. So if you improve your mechanics, then instinctively they're going to kick in when that loose puck comes. But it's not, at that point, it's not going to be conscious anymore.
Yeah, that's the idea. That's what we're all hoping for, is that you don't even think about it. And
Yeah.
you don't even really notice it until you're in a foot race with a fast defenseman. You just blow by him, and all of a sudden you have a breakaway on net.
Yep.
And you're like, well, maybe that stuff does work. And
Yep,
yeah, it
exactly.
does. It definitely does.
But it's definitely after hours and hours and hours and hours of repetition. And then the other thing, when you talked about like having some time after practice to work on that type of stuff, it probably is true that a lot of players don't have that type of time after practice to work on that stuff. But I guarantee you that there's open hockey in their areas where there's open ice that they can find. I guarantee you that they can get to the rink 45 minutes, an hour before everyone else does, and do some off ice stuff. They can stay afterwards and do some off ice stuff, and you can accomplish a lot of those same things by doing off ice stuff. And the beauty of it is at those younger levels, it's not expected. I mean, at the pro level, the year level you're at right now, a lot of players are doing it because that's why they got there in the first place. They have those training habits. But at the younger levels, most of the players after practice, the bag's packed and they're gone, right? So, doing the little bit extra is how you're going to, dramatically exceed an ability over time, over a month, 3 months, a year, everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, if you can ingrain those good habits early in your career, man, the payoff is going to be huge. Whether it's a month on the line, a year, 5 years, 10 years.
Yep.
If after 10 years you've followed through on those good habits, you're going to be 10 times better hockey player than you would have been without those.
Yep.
A night and day difference. And
I mean, I personally didn't start doing those things myself because I didn't know any better until, I was probably in junior hockey. And that's when I really realized it. So I was later on in my career. I wish I would have been doing that when I was, 13. But even if I was 15 and 16, the difference would have been monumental. And, a lot of the stuff to do off the ice, we obviously have on our website. So players have the right drills, the right tactics. For me, I was just I was just trying to work really, really hard in the weight room. But again, not doing the right things all the time. You just don't know any better. So, a good lesson there. I mean, even when you're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, implement it now. It's not too late.
Yeah, that's the perfect time to do it too, where your body's growing and you're going to really remember all those good habits. We talk about muscle memory, and when you start instilling those good habits, your body at that age is really going to adapt to it, and you're going to see, I think that's where you're going to see the most growth and improvement. Yep. And then after those, once you reach your 20s and you set that ground level, and that foundation, then it's like, you'll see a growth, and then it's just going to be a steady growth throughout your career.
Yeah.
So that'd be my advice, to start early. I mean, if you're 15, 16, 17, earlier if you can, but whatever you are, if you're 18, 19, it's never too late to start. But in those late teen years, those are pivotal times for your development as a hockey player.
Yep. And so transitioning from that to, like, in the season here, you've always been an intense guy. And, even when we were playing, you were, pre-game, really intense player, getting fired up and things like that. Has that changed at all now that, one, the season's a little bit longer, maybe you've learned, or are you still, trying to fire at all cylinders emotionally when the game starts? And then let's talk about your routine a little bit, for game day, pre-game, when you get to the rink, things along those lines.
I mean, I'm definitely not as intense as I was when I was 18 years old. You saw me, I was a pretty fiery dude. But I definitely need to have that element of intensity in my game. I think there are some players out there who can be very calm and relaxed and just very loose. If I do that, I'm not going to be an effective power forward, because I'm not going to be aggressive and I'm not going to be doing my job.
So let me ask you a quick question and interrupt you here quick. When you say looser players, like, do you think that some of those players are as effective, or when you see a player maybe being a little bit looser, typically when that happens, are you seeing a player like that, making more mistakes and maybe not being an impact player? Do you think that everyone just has their own way to prepare, where a player can be kind of joking around in the locker room, not quite as focused, or is everyone pretty dialed in at that level?
I think that there is a big variety of players. I'm farther on the aggressive side of the spectrum, where there are quite a few players who are more relaxed. And I think it's all just a personal preference.
Yep.
Where at the end of the day, it's all about, your preparation is obviously very important, but it's all about your on-ice performance over the course of a whole season, not for one game, not for 10, consistently over, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 games. And if you're able to do that with a relaxed mentality and be successful, well, maybe that's your recipe for success. I will warn that I've seen a lot of players drop off over the years because of that lackadaisical attitude, or maybe they've been able to get by on that, and just being relaxed and joking around. Where I'd say it's a minority of players that are able to get away with that, and it's usually the very high end skill players. I'd say most players are kind of a balance right in the middle, where it's more of a calm focus.
Yep.
Where it's more of a quiet, introspective. I know a lot of people utilize visualization. That's really big. A lot of guys will just, you can see them just kind of off with headphones on in their own world, maybe even stick handling an imaginary stick, and you can tell they're in visualization mode. And I find that that's pretty much a recipe that I say most players utilize at this level. Like I said, I'm on the more aggressive side of the spectrum, where I do that. I am very quiet. I'm in my own world and visualizing. But once I'm going onto the ice, I'm the guy who's going to be banging my stick and grunting and fist pounding my teammates and being loud and rambunctious.
Yep. And I think too, like, even the guys that are a little bit loose and a little bit relaxed, the ones that are doing it effectively anyways, it's a conscious decision on their behalf. There's some guys, the guys that drop off, that just say, I'm good enough, I'm too lazy to put the time in to prepare. Well, they're gone, right? The guys that actually, are doing it consciously, like they've tested really preparing hard for a game maybe, and it didn't go as well for them, so they've backed it off a little bit. They've found what works for them, and then they implement that. And you see those guys, when they get into the game though, they're ready to go. And, in shifts, they're intense on the ice, but they have consciously made a decision before the game to maybe be a little bit more relaxed, because they understand that's what's going to get them the best performance. So I think that there's a fine line there for players. And, I know you're kind of preaching the same thing, but, people need to understand, like, too many players I see think that you just have to be relaxed and loose before the game, and then they go out and they're making bad mistakes, no accountability, because they didn't prepare the right way.
Yeah, my 2 cents is that if you're going to be that guy who's very loose and relaxed and joking around in the locker room, you better make sure that you're a guy who the rest of your teammates are going to want to go to war with. Because if
Yep.
you're not, if your teammates don't trust you and believe in you, and you're being that clown and the joker, you're not. That's not being a good teammate, and
Yeah.
you're going to find yourself, off the team the next year or not making that jump to the next level.
Yep.
You want to, you. It's all about accountability.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that 100%. I think that's the best way to put it too. So let's talk about a little bit like then, on game day, what do you do when you get to the rink? Like kind of what's your basic routine? What do you like to do to warm up, get in the right mindset? Just go through that a little bit.
Yeah, I get to the rink at 5 o'clock. We're puck drops at 7:05, so from about 5 o'clock until 5:30, it's a window of pretty much doing whatever each player wants to do. And for me, I have a nice cup of coffee. I usually sit on the toilet and I go over the scouting report on the other team. Have a nice relaxing bathroom break. You want it real, right? Oh, it's
Yeah, yeah,
real.
we'll get it down. Now we're gonna have a bunch of 15-year-old kids, on the toilet with a cup of coffee before their games.
Stay away from the coffee. Go with the green tea. But yeah, that's what I do. I go to the bathroom. I really go over the scouting report. I don't know how it is in the younger levels, but we get a scouting report on each player. It's a stat pack we call it. It tells us statistics, and I really go over that. I know who my opponent's going to be. I know which guys I need to really focus on playing hard against. I know who their big skill guys are, um, and I just kind of go over that. I prepare. I really like to know my opponent. That's something that I like to do. I like to know who the fighters are on the other team. I like to know who the skill guys are, and so I study the opposing team. I have my coffee. I go to the bathroom. Then right around 5:30, we have a team meeting. Um, Coach comes in. We'll go over some video, and it goes back to knowing your opponent. We go over what forecheck is going to be implemented against us. We go over all the systems, what we're going to use, and so we all are dialed in on the same game plan. And then that usually lasts about 10, 15 minutes. And then at 5:45, that's time to warm up. And for me, I have about a 10 to 15 minute dynamic warm up that I have. I mean, it's a pretty standard dynamic warm up that I'm sure you go over with 247 hockey. It's a standard warm up that I've been doing, and it's evolved over the years to my own personal preferences, but it's what I need to get my body prepared.
Yep.
And that takes about 10, 15 minutes. And by the time I get into the locker room, I have my earphones on. I'm listening to the same CD I always listen to. It's all about rituals for me. And I start putting on my equipment. I have about 15 minutes to get dressed. And by the time I lace up my skates and put on my bucket, it's time to get out there and go for pregame warm up at 6:20. We have our pregame warm up about 15 minutes, and once we come back in, the coach addresses the team one more time, and at 7:05 the puck drops, and I play at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in front of 10,000 fans, and it's pretty amazing every single night.
Yeah, well, I think that, methodically, like how you're knowing all the times, like, 6:17, we're doing this, you know what I mean? Like that, to me, that's just like a professional, like being a pro. And if there's something that players can take away from this, it's routine and just being a pro. Like, know what time these things are happening so you can actually plan out your preparation properly. And that's being a professional. And just those steps is going to make a big difference in a lot of players. Now, what did you do? What are you doing like before practice? Do you have anything that you like to do before? Actually, let me take a step back. Let's talk about post game. Talk a little bit about post game.
Well, obviously, post-game recovery is very important in all levels of hockey. For me, especially, it's very important. It's my 8th year pro. I'm a little older. I'm actually the oldest guy on my team, so taking care of my body is my priority number one. And for that, post-game recovery is one of the most important things for me. And for me, post-game recovery means right away getting fluids back into me, getting replenished with protein, and getting my glycogen replenished. And for me, my supplementation these days is pretty natural, and I drink a concoction that I invented of sweet, what is it, red sweet tart cherry juice, organic, obviously, and not from concentrate. And I'll mix about 8 ounces of that with about 15 grams of hemp protein, and mixed with about 10 grams of sweet potato powder, with about a tablespoon of a green mixture, which I use Green Vibrance, it's called. And right away I'll mix that up into a shaker and take that down, and that restores my glycogen in my body and gets my protein levels back, and which is very important for recovery on the supplement side of things. And as soon as I take that down, I have a water filled with electrolyte powder. Gatorade makes one called Gator Lights, and I take one of those in about 16 ounces of water, and right away I get to the weight room and start taking that down, and I'll usually perform some sort of a circuit, like you know, I've evolved or adapted one over my career where I do a series of jump squats and burpees and push-ups and lunges, and it usually takes me about 5 minutes, and by that time I have a good full body sweat. It's kind of like my secondary sweat after I've already cooled down after the game, and that serves to flush all the lactic acid out of my muscles and just to get me restored for the next day. And after I do that for about 5 minutes, I'm still hammering down the water, getting hydrated. That's very important. And I'll perform a stretch and maybe a light foam roller on my muscles. And after that, it's a hot shower and right into the ice bath. My favorite part of the day, it's the cold tub, which I found is one of the most effective methods of recovery. Just about everybody in pro hockey and in college, going back to college, that's when I first discovered the ice bath, was back in college at Lowell. And we go into ice water about 50 degrees, and I usually stay in there for about 8 minutes and get out of there and throw on my clothes, and I'm out of there. So the whole process usually takes me about 30 to 35 minutes for post-game recovery.
Nice, dude. Again, talking about, being a professional, I mean, everything you're talking about right now, players need to understand, you don't have to, necessarily mix your, organic tart cherry juice with sweet potato powder. You can, obviously that's at a high level of performance, right? But, having something right after you, get off the ice, having some way to replenish, some protein, some carbohydrates, doing it in a healthy manner, getting some water, getting the protein back, flushing the lactic acid out. A lot of people are like, why would you do another mini 5-minute workout after your game, right? I mean, you're tired, you're sore, you just want to freaking relax. Well, it's because, tomorrow's another day that you got to perform at a high level, and flushing that lactic acid out is going to make it so your legs aren't as heavy and, your energy's up the next day. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, if I don't do anything and I play a game and I just go home, I'm going to feel like crap the next day. I'm not going to have my legs. And, I mean, one of the worst feelings that I have ever experienced is, and I'm sure every hockey player has experienced it, is when you go to play a hockey game and you don't have your legs. It's one of the most frustrating things you'll ever experience.
And it's not random.
Exactly.
It's not hit or miss. Even in junior hockey, sometimes guys are like, oh man, I just didn't have my legs today. It's so frustrating. Well, what'd you do the night before? What'd you eat throughout the whole week? What was your entire plan that week and that routine that week? And then what did you do before the game, after the game? And every single one of those components has an effect, and it's not random. And what you just talked about right there is, how you make sure that it isn't random, how you make sure that you're performing at a high level, the next night. And for so many players right now, I mean, you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, oh yeah, I've gone out with heavy legs when I've had a, Saturday, Sunday or Friday, Saturday weekend. This is the type of routine. And people at a lot of younger levels, people would look at that routine and think you're absolutely crazy, even in junior hockey. Some guy's over in his stall, with sweet potato powder, his own tart cherry juice, his own protein, and then, he's going into the ice bath and he's doing his burpees and the whole 9 yards and doing stretches. And most guys are like, dude, let's get out of here and let's go grab some food with, these ladies, right? And the point is that who cares what anyone else thinks? That's how the professional players are doing it, because they're getting paid to perform at a high level, and you're going to benefit from mimicking that type of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do what works for you, and I know it works for me, and I can honestly say I'm not some outlier and some random athlete it's everybody's doing this stuff.
Yep.
Everybody's addressing lactic acid, and everybody's addressing glycogen restoration. And I mean, yeah, my organic tart cherry juice and hemp protein is and sweet potato powder is pretty extreme. But an easy thing you can do is, you get I think they're like the 16-ounce bottles of Gatorade. You can get one of those, drink a little bit of it, and put in 15 to 20 grams of just your standard whey protein, and mix that together, and there you go. That's your protein and carbohydrate recovery drink.
Yep.
And that's very important.
Yep. Cool, man. I think that's really good info. So then let's talk about practice a little bit. Is your pre-practice routine the same as your, pre-game routine, or what do you do a little bit differently there? Because, again, practice is extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, practice is at this level, and I'm sure at many levels, it's pretty much a tryout to see who's going to be playing on the weekend. I know back in junior, there's always going to be healthy scratches, and I'm sure even at the high school level, there's going to be some guys from night to night who are going to be sitting in the stands. And it's like my mentality is control what you can control. I can control how good I am at practice this week, and once I did that, I know I did everything to set myself up so that I know I'll be in the lineup for the weekend, and I know that I'll be ready to play at my highest level on the weekend. And that's just the way I've always looked at it. And so for me, that means preparing for practice just like a game.
Yeah.
My dynamic warm-up is the same that I perform on a game day. I'm not sitting around for an hour and a half before a practice is intensely focused and with my earbuds on and listening to insane punk rock music. But I'm there at the same time, and I'm doing the same things. I'm having my coffee in the bathroom. I'm going out and I'm getting my warm up in. I'm thinking about the practice I'm going to have, knowing I'm going to have a good practice. But I would say the attitude around the locker room it's a little lighter, but at the same time it's very professional, and people know that you have to practice well if you're going to play on the weekend, and in order to be a good pro and a good hockey player, you have to be good at practice.
Yeah.
Period.
I like it. And yeah, I mean, it is going to be a little bit lighter for sure. I can see that. I can also see the sense of intensity and urgency that's still there.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about a balancing act.
Yep.
I don't think you can be full throttle, intense, and smashing your head on walls every single day.
Yep.
It's like you can bring that out for games, but that's where on practice days I have more of that focused intensity, where it's a little bit lighter, and I know that it's going to be a day where I get better as a pro, and I just get better as a hockey player that day, so that when that next weekend comes around, I know I'll be a better hockey player and hopefully contribute.
That's awesome. I like it, dude. I like it a lot. So, getting into that, post-practice, kind of like your routine throughout the week after practice, nutrition, recovery, things along those lines, because it's the same thing. I mean, you're grinding away in practice on a daily basis. You want to perform at a high level on the weekend. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, looking at it now, I must seem just insane, but I mean, my post practice is pretty much the same as post game. I mean, it's a circuit. It's getting that lactic acid out. It's getting that protein carbohydrate mixture in me. It's getting hydrated, getting electrolytes in me. It's getting the stretch. It's rolling out on the foam roller. It's finding any knots in my muscles and addressing those by smashing it with a lacrosse ball. And we call it smashing. It's just like rolling out similarly like you do on a foam roller, but on a lacrosse ball. And showering and then taking that ice bath. I do that every day. So that's my routine, whether it's a game day or a practice day. It's like you have to be at your best every single day. And I truly believe that if you instill those habits early, maybe not that intense. I know a lot of guys don't have access to an ice bath or all this equipment, but if you get that protein in you do a quick circuit, you focus on stretching and addressing and maintaining, any sore areas on your body. You start that early and you really get that to be one of your habits for after practice or after games, you're going to be light years ahead of your peers, your teammates, and your opponents.
Yep. And the thing is that, like you said, I mean, not everyone has an ice bath, but you can throw some ice packs on, some sore areas of your body or on your legs, cold shower, whatever. I mean, make do with what you have. But everyone's got access to a lacrosse ball. You can get a foam roller for $10 at Target or whatever, or on Amazon.com. I mean, how many guys out there right now listening to this are, using a lacrosse ball on their muscles, are, rolling out on the foam roller after, a practice or at night before bed. Those are the things that, intense elite players are doing on a regular basis, and you can get an advantage by implementing those into your game right now. Now, talk about, you're obviously doing it because you want to perform at a high level every single day. What does that mean? I mean, performing at a high level every single day, what does that mean to you? I mean, are you looking at what that does to how you're improving? If you're more recovered, you're going to be able to get more out of the next day's work, the next day's practice, improving a little bit every single day, taking more in, maybe being able to go a little bit harder in the weight room or go a little bit harder on the ice. And then as you're making those improvements, obviously that's your road to getting to the NHL, getting to that next level. Is that what it's about, or is it about just, tomorrow's performance on the ice?
I mean, it's definitely not just about that performance on the ice. For me, it's about, literally, it's my life. It's right now, hockey is my life. Hockey's my job, and hockey is my way to provide for my family. I'm the only person working and bringing in an income right now. My wife is a stay-at-home wife with our baby, and so I know that this is the real deal. Like, this isn't just messing around and playing hockey just for kicks. I do love it and I have fun, and I am getting my kicks playing hockey, but at the same time I know that this is serious business, where this is real life for me. And so I know that I just have to be at my very best every single day if I want to continue to do this for many years into the future, which I do. I want to play hockey until I'm 40 years old.
Yeah.
I want to see. And not only that, it's almost like it becomes this personal obsession and a personal quest, where for some reason I was given a certain skill set and a certain talent to play hockey and an opportunity to play hockey. And I think that just because we get to play such an amazing game, we should all feel very lucky to do that. And now that I've been able to do this as my job and to play pro hockey and to be so close, I just really feel that I owe it to myself and to my family and to everyone around me. I owe it to you, Zach. I owe it to Ricard, our coach that year in Montana. Like, everybody who had some impact in your life as a hockey player, like, you owe it to them to just give it everything you have and to see how good you can get.
Yeah.
For me, it's like I want to see how good I can get. Can I play in the NHL? Can I be one of the top 600 players on earth?
Yeah.
At any given time? And I'm like, I'm really close right now, and I have that contract. So it's like that doorway is open, and now I'm trying to do the best I can every single day, and knowing that if I stick to that formula, that's going to be how I make those tiny, tiny improvements every single day. And over the course of a month or a year or 5 years, that's when you get those little improvements, which at this level they're giant improvements because everybody's so good. And the talent pool is so similar. It's like you need all the little improvements you can get, and you need to do everything to get those.
Dude, I mean, we can drill down on a lot of the things that you talked about today, but I think that's the perfect spot to end it because, here you are talking about, really like the spiritual component of hockey. I mean, the self value in it, the identity behind it, right? And I think that's just like, a really important thing, because if you take it for granted and you're not doing these little things, you're wasting an opportunity, and you're also wasting the time and effort and energy of other people that are investing in you. But really it comes down to yourself. I mean, I look at the fact that, a lot of the guys that you played with in your career, college, juniors, etc., are still following you, have a lot invested in you, are excited for you and your career. But at the same time, like, none of that meant anything until, you made the commitment to yourself, and I really think that's kind of what I've taken out of what you've said a little bit. And that's impressive, because you can't hide, right? There's nowhere to hide out there. Like, you have to be comfortable and satisfied with who you are, and knowing that, you're giving it everything that you have. And that's what's really going to lead to that transparency, and that honesty is going to lead to the honesty in your game.
Definitely. I think it's all related. Life outside of hockey and life on the hockey rink are so closely related. And that's the one thing I've learned over these years. It's like I'm trying to improve my hockey game, and I know that if I do some stick handling drills or work on my conditioning and nutrition, that's all a given. Everybody's doing that. That's what you have to do to improve. But for me, I've learned that it goes much deeper than that, where if I'm trying to improve my hockey game and I go even a step further and say to myself, well, I'm going to try and improve my life in every aspect, not just hockey, because I'm much more than a hockey player. I'm going to improve my life as, somebody who's spiritual and looking for my meaning in this world and focusing on meditation and just finding balance in all aspects of my life and my family life. That's, you hit the nail on the head. That translates to improvements, not just in your life, but on the hockey rink too. I wish there was a formula for it, but someday maybe we'll write one. But I just know that it's all related somehow.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Yeah, it's just, continuing to, the same effort and energy and consciousness that you put towards, your game on the ice and improving on the ice is that same thing, just being a better person, because all that is going to come back. It's the same habits. It's, the same effort. It's the same preparation. It's all those habits that are going to come back. And, that's what really turns you into a better hockey player. And like you said, it's being honest on both ends, because you have to be an honest hockey player. You talk about it a lot, being honest. It's like doing all the little things, not taking shortcuts on, in games, in practices, and that all adds up in the long run. So, but I like it, man. I think you got some phenomenal hockey wisdom, life wisdom. I appreciate you sharing it. A couple things here when we're finishing up. First and foremost, you have to have some good relationships and some good contacts with some other players at the American League, even at the NHL level. You got to hook us up with some guys that we can interview. What do you think about that?
That sounds good. I know a lot of people have a lot of wisdom to share.
Yeah. I'd love it if you could introduce me to a couple guys and I could have them on here. I know that I'd appreciate it. Our audience would really appreciate it. The second thing is, where can people find you? Like, connecting with you. You can keep dropping knowledge on people. Is it, Twitter account? I know you have a website. Why don't you give people some of that information?
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter. It's Bobby RRROBINS. So Bobby Robbins with 3 R's in the middle.
All right.
Because Triple R is my nickname.
Okay.
And then you can find me on my website. It's BobbyRobbins.com, BOBBYROBINS. And check that out. I am a writing major from UMass Lowell, an English writing major, and I love to write, and I want to be a writer. I kind of say, like, to be cute, I'm a writer and a fighter. But I have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of words that I've written down, and I poured out some truth into that website and that blog, and you can go on there and read truth from a guy who's in the trenches, grinding and literally fighting and trying to chase this dream of mine. You can find me on Facebook too. I'm all over the internet. You'll find me.
Just search Bobby Robbins with one B in Robbins, right? ROBINS, and you'll find a lot of good stuff. Twitter, Facebook, website, all that good stuff. And I've read, most of Bobby's posts, if not all of them, and I'm constantly sending them on to people because they're so amazing. And talking about just the awesome detail and stories that you tell in terms of hockey and life are just pretty cool, man. So I suggest anybody that's listening that has enjoyed this and enjoyed listening to Bobby, go check out that website. And dude, I just really appreciate having you on. And look forward to talking to you again, because I think that we still left some stuff on the table. We're just wetting the whistle a little bit, and we still left some stuff on the table. So we'll do this again.
Oh, for sure. Just scratching the surface, bro.
That's right, man. All right, dude. You have a great night, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, guys.